Okay, people, thank you for tuning in. I've had at least one person ask me how I did the neat effects when obviously slicing and obviously printing with dual and triple color co-extrusion filament. So I'm going to go through this in three particular slicers. You'll be able to find similar slicers obviously there. So this should at least get you in the concept for it. So obviously I've just created a simple disk object for the purpose. And obviously we're going to go into our settings. This one particularly is Orca, which is a seemingly popular slicer these days. And we're going to go to, in this case, we're going to go into the quality, strength, speed, supports kind of settings. These are the settings you tell the slicer how to do the particular print with certain settings. So in this case, it'll be the strength, because obviously that comes from your walls and perimeters. And the two particular settings that we're looking for here is your top surface pattern and your bottom surface pattern. So obviously the top surface pattern does this side of the print, bottom side does this one. Now as you can see, it's set for monotonic. This is the surface that most people prefer because it makes a nice smooth flattened ironed type of surface. But if you want to get clever with the multiple type, you got a couple of different kinds other than crisscrosses or rectilinear. You got Hilbert curve, Archimedean chords, and the one I like to use obviously especially with dual co-extrusion is the octagram spiral. So I'm going to set that to the top surface pattern, and then I'm going to slice this particular item, and we'll show you how that works. And as you can see now, it has that lovely star pattern. Okay, now if I were to change that, say for example to Hilbert curve, the plate again. Yeah, I do apologize. This is not my normal big PC that I use for this. This is my everyday stuff. But I thought, what the heck, let me give it a try. So it's just generating that. There it goes. As you can see, we get a totally different design. Now this obviously would take advantage of the co-extrusion, because as it goes through each little curve and each the filament will lay down slightly different. So you get some really interesting designs. Archimedean chords is another one. Now obviously each slicer will have specific patterns that in some cases are exclusive to that slicer. And as you can see, the Archimedean chords are basically just big spiral like a record, Now that would really take advantage of a co-extrusion, because one side will be one color and it'll fade into the other color on the other side, yeah? So that's how it works obviously in Orca. Now we'll find the same thing, and here we go, in Super Slicer, which is another popular one that I see people using. The same thing applies here, except in this case it's called print settings, yeah. And we come over here to our infill settings, and that same settings here, top and bottom, obviously. So we get, in this one we have Hilbert curve, Archimedean chords, octagram spiral. They also have a sawtooth and ironing. Now ironing you probably won't do much with, because that's just a different type of extrusion that tries to smooth it even further. Concentric, obviously, is just circles. So again, I'll do the octagram spiral on the top. Let's go to the sliced and tell it to slice it. And there you go, the familiar, lovely star-like pattern. Absolutely love this pattern. And as you can see, because of the way it lays down, it kind of gives you an idea what a dual color extrusion is going to look like. Now it'll go even crazier if you have triple color, because it'll just depend on how the filament comes out of the tip of the nozzle, what orientation it's in, and you can somewhat control that obviously as long as the spool is coming off straight from the spool into your extruder, and it doesn't ultimately twist in any way. You can really control how the colors lay down. And then finally, obviously, the last slicer I'm going to show this in is Prusa Slicer. So in Prusa Slicer, as you can see, this looks just like the other two slicers. That's because the other two slicers are pretty much based on Prusa Slicer. So again, we're going to print settings. We're going to go under infill. And here's our octagram spiral already set, because this is the slicer I predominantly use for pretty much everything. And there we go. And in the case that I put it top and bottom, as you can see, the bottom will also have that pattern. So if you were making a badge or a disc or something like that you would hold in your hand, that wouldn't always be, face down, you'll get that lovely design on both sides. So I hope that's been helpful, obviously, with how I did that lovely pattern using co-extrusion filament.